impermanent, imperfect, and selfless in nature. This became what is known as the first ultimate truth or the first noble truth, as it literally means. In fact, he said there's no true permanent self-entity. There's no beings, no person, no self, no you, no me. Why is it so? For example, you have a car, when you take it apart, the wheel, the chassis, the engine, the trunk, where's the car? Unless you put it together. This is our self-image hologram that we generate. In Buddhist terms, it's called Sakkayatitti. We think as our self-image hologram. Then suffering arises. For over 100 years of searching, neuroscientists have not found any place in the brain where self is located. There's no puppet master that working on that anywhere in the brain. So how does it come about, this self-image hologram, or the self-entity, the I tag in the scientific term? The Buddha described this in the 4 foundations of mindfulness in the latter part that you read on this sutra. He said how we perceive things through the 6th sense sphere, 6th sense organ, eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind. There's a consciousness correlated there, like eye consciousness, ear consciousness, nasal consciousness, tongue consciousness, body consciousness, and mental consciousness come in contact with sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, thoughts. There's feeling, you perceive to those things that you perceive. There's perception, pure perception. Then they become biased perception. There's craving from that biased perception. It's corrupted. You have disturbing thoughts and obsessive thoughts. And that's biased perception. That's beyond the normal pure perception. We become conceptual. We entangle in the suppositional world. Our thoughts, biased thoughts. This is in scientific term they call I tag. That's how you perceive things. Like you perceive, like this is my pen, my book, my car, my house, my spouse, and so on. Your brain perceives that, as well as you label them, mine, yours. This is I tag in short term. So I, in the eyes of neuroscientists, Brian Lancaster, senior lecturer at the Liverpool Polytech, he said, I is not a fixed structure in memory. It arises through our interactions with the world around us. Memory images came complete with their I tags. Each eye is a product of imagination. Doesn't truly exist. An image generated to meet the moment's need. Professor Antonio Damasio, he was head of neurology department at U of Iowa. He moved to USC now. In parallel with generating mental patterns for an object, the brain also generates a sense of self in the act of knowing. That's very Buddhist. It's about how I was formed. Professor Steven Pinker, neuroscience director, Center of Cognitive at MIT. Now he moved to Harvard, across the street. Said, mind and soul, activities of mortal neural tissue rather than an eternal, immaterial flame or spirit. So basically was saying soulless. Science cannot provide us with values, but can tell what kind of world we live in, which is relevant to how we set our values and seek to attain them. So world in the Buddhist view is basically, he starts with thought formation or conditioning called Sankhara Loka. This guy is, we talk about the dependent arising, that's how we come up with our world, our thought formation, thought process, and we label as ours and mine, and our world exists through that. You may have read about Tuesday with Maury. This is Professor Maury Schwartz that was written about. He was interviewed 2 weeks before he died of Lou disease by Ted Koppel. And Ted Koppel asked him, how's the world today? What's the perspective of life? Look out there, across the street there, so to the park. He obviously live in an apartment next to the Central Park, New York or whatever. He's a professor, maybe in Boston, professor of, at Brandeis University in Boston. So how do you view life? And then his answers is that he's had a little very, he can hardly put, he couldn't even put his glasses on. He only sucked from the straw to eat. He said, you know, like he was lifted there to this chair by his caretaker. And he said, my world is what I see in this library and what I see out this window. This is my world. So he said, we should love each other, be compassionate towards each other. So this is basically what this Buddhism is describing. The world is something you face in front of you, nothing beyond, nothing less. Then he described the world as sentient being. All living beings are sattva-loka, like body and mind. So, and then he described the third one, which for us would come to number one, planet Earth. Okay, Okasaloka. I put this up, the map there, to point out the Buddha described this in Akanja Sutra over 2,500 years ago. He was saying that land was floating in the ocean, in the water. How could that be? When you read about it, say, oh, it probably is not true. But he was very truthful about it, because it's been found like 200 million years ago. India just break off from South Africa, Gandhara, the southern Pangaea. The Pangaea has northern Eurasia, which became Europe and Asia and North America. The South America, the Africa has the southern part has Africa, India, and also Australia, New Zealand, and Antarctica, which split off and became India, and it took 200 million years to float in the ocean. And how do they know? Because Seychelles Island on the path in the Indian Ocean, they can date back 80 million years ago. The rock there is matching the South Africa near the Madagascar island there. So is India. India just came to join Asia about 20 million years ago and became pushed into Mount Everest, the tallest mountain in the world. And it's still moving at 4 centimeters a year. Can you imagine that? The Buddha saw it. So he's